Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, May 4th, 2011 meeting of the Municipal Platting Board. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Lyndall Story.
Here.
Steve Abel.
Here.
Ken Fuller.
Here.
Ellen McKay.
Here.
Anastasia Taylor. Jody Moses.
Here.
Daniel Young.
Present.
Brent Cole.
Present.
Amy McKenzie.
We have a quorum and there is no short board. There are some additional matters that we need to take up. According to Municipal Code 2111-101, we need to have election of officers this evening. So we need to add that to the agenda. May I have a motion to add election of officers to the agenda, please?
So moved.
Jody Moses moves. Is there a second? Mr. Young seconds. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the next order of business will be election of officers. We need to elect a chair and a vice chair. Are there any nominations? Ms. Moses.
I nominate Daniel Young for the vice chair.
Okay. Is there any objection to Mr. Young being vice chair? If not, you are now the vice chair. In the matter of chair?
For the position of chair, I nominate Ellen McKay to remain as chairperson.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, I'll be the chair. Next order of business is approval of action summaries. And there is a conflict, so I'm going to move special order of business to just before the approval of the action summaries and the minutes. So, are there any disclosures? Mr. Young.
In the case of S11867-1 Solera at West Park Subdivision, I worked for the developer on this property in the capacity of groundwater and stormwater management. I have potential ongoing business relationships with the project developer, including financial interest, and I declare a conflict of interest, and I ask that I be excused from presiding over this matter.
So, do we have a motion to direct Mr. Young to participate? You can do that loud. It's okay.
Yes, I move to direct Mr. Young.
Is there a second? Okay. Ms. McKenzie seconds the motion. Would you speak to your motion, Mr. Story?
I will not be supporting the motion because it appears that Mr. Young does have a conflict with this case.
So, because there is objection, we'll vote? Do we have to vote? Okay, we vote. So a no vote would direct Mr. Young not to participate, and a yes vote would direct him to participate. Okay, that motion fails, and Mr. Young, you will abstain in the vote on approval of action summaries for Monday, April 25th, 2011. So, with that out of the way, are there any other disclosures, since we're on disclosures? Then the next order of business is approval of action summaries, and we have action summaries for Tuesday, March 29th, 2011, Monday, April 4th, 2011, Wednesday, April 6th, 2011, Monday, April 11th, 2011, and Wednesday, April 13th, 2011, Monday, April 25th, 2011, the case that Mr. Young will be abstaining from. May I have a positive motion for approval of action summaries, please? Mr. Young. Is there a second? Mr. Story. Is there any objection to approval of the action summaries? If not, the action summaries are approved, and we'll move on to approval of minutes. We have minutes from September 2nd, 2009, October 7th, 2009, January 5th, 2011, and February 2nd, 2011. May I have a positive motion for approval of the minutes, please? Mr. Story, is there a second? Mr. Young, is there any objection to approval of the minutes? Seeing none, minutes are approved. We've already dealt with special order of business, which brings us to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of all matters before the board that do not require a public hearing. All items shall be approved by motion without debate. Does any member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, may I have a positive motion for approval of the consent agenda? Ms. Moses moves and Mr. Abel seconds. Is there any objection to approval of the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved, and I just want those in attendance to know that by this action we have postponed a couple of cases, as well as had one case withdrawn. Sunday Lake subdivision has been withdrawn, and the Eagle Crossing cases, case S10625-11 and case S11496-5 have been postponed to July 6th. So if anyone's here to hear those two cases, they've been postponed to July 6th. Moving on to new business and the public hearings. During the new business portion of the meeting, we will be following the rules of procedure on the front of the agenda. After the staff has made a presentation on a particular case, the chair will ask for public testimony. Persons who wish to testify have time limits. Petitioners, including the representative, have 10 minutes that they may reserve rebuttal time. Representatives of groups such as community councils and PTAs have 5 minutes. Individuals have 3 minutes. We keep time by this little unit up here. The light is green. During your testimony, when there's 1 minute left, it turns yellow, which time you should sum up, and when your time is up, it turns red, and there's a buzzer. You need to stop. When your testimony is complete, you can just stay at the podium because you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless you're questioned by the board. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action that the board takes, and the appeal procedure is on the front of the agenda. Okay, so new business. First order of new business is case S11869-1, Midnight Sun subdivision. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request to vacate the inner 20 feet of the 50-foot BLM easements along the north and west boundaries of lots 1 and 2, Midnight Sun subdivision. This will leave 30 feet of the easement, which will be dedicated as a public right-of-way on each side. Old Cranberry Drive is a local street. Tanata Drive is unconstructed and is also considered a local street. Lot 1 is a corner lot, therefore the primary front yard for Lot 1 is Old Cranberry Drive, and the secondary front yard is Tenada Avenue. The minimum front yard setback is 50 feet, and any future structures must be located at least 50 feet from Old Cranberry Drive and at least 25 feet from Tenada Avenue. The purpose of this action is to vacate the remainder 20-foot wide BLM roadways that are excess to the 30-foot needed for the half dedications from this site, and public utility rights-of-way along the north and west boundaries of the petition site. If the vacation requests are approved, it will leave sufficient dedicated right-of-way for Old Cranberry Drive and Tenada Avenue. Instar had earlier noted their objection to the proposed vacation of the 50-foot BLM right-of-way and the public utility right-of-way, as they operate and maintain natural gas facilities within the proposed vacation area. Since that time, the petitioner has met with AWU, and they have submitted a letter which was laid on the table to you all tonight, saying that they no longer have any objections, provided that Instar is granted a replacement natural gas easement for the existing natural gas facilities. And I spoke with the petitioner earlier tonight, or the petitioner's representative, and they have no problem with that. That's all I have.
Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, will the petitioner or the petitioner's representative come forward? State your name, please.
Madam Chairman, board members, my name is Kenneth Lang. I'm here this evening in behalf of Midnight Sun Construction, the petitioner. For those who are new to the board, this is a situation the board has dealt with many times in the past. For whatever reason, the BLM created 100-foot wide reservations where streets were conceived to be constructed. In rural areas such as this, 100 feet certainly isn't needed, and the current municipal standard of 60 feet is more than adequate. In fact, if you go to page 22 of your packet, you'll see where in just this small area, there have been at least 25 vacation and subdivision cases. So the board has acted on this many times in the past. The petitioner feels the request is within reason, and we've examined the staff's 9 recommendations, and other than deleting the Instar reference in condition number 1, as it'll be handled with the regular utility easements, we have no comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and would reserve the remainder of my time for rebuttal.
Okay, 8.5 minutes. Any questions for Mr. Lang? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in case S11869-1, lots 1 and 2, Midnight Sun subdivision? Anyone at all? Mr. Lang, do you care to take any of your 8.5 minutes? He indicates he does not. So we'll close the public hearing and the matter rests with the board. May I have a positive motion, please? On the vacation. Mr. Story.
In case S-11869-1, I move to approve the vacation of the south 20 feet of the BLM roadway and the public utility right-of-way along the north boundary of Lot 1, Midnight Sun subdivision, in the east 20 feet of the BLM roadway and public utility right-of-way along the west boundary of Lots 1 and 2, Midnight Sun subdivision, subject to the filing and suitable replat within 18 months, and the approval of the plat subject to conditions 1 through.
Well, we'll take vacation first. Just the vacation first. And Mr. Fuller, you second? Would you speak to your motion, Mr. Story?
I believe that it meets the current MOA right-of-way standards. I also believe that it meets the municipal vacation policy. It seems to be a pretty straightforward plat, and therefore I move to approve.
Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the vacations are approved. Now, moving on to the plat. Mr. Story?
Yes, I move to approve, in case S-11869-1, I move to approve the plat of lots 1 and 2 Midnight Sun subdivision. Approval with the conditions, or plat subject to the conditions 1 through 9.
And did you wish to amend the first condition to remove the N-Star reference, or leave it as it is?
I would leave it as is. That's still something I think they need to resolve with N-Star. It appears that N-Star is in agreement with that, so they can deal with N-Star and get that approval.
Okay, is there a second? Mr. Young seconds. Mr. Story, would you speak to your motion, please?
Again, this appears to be a fairly straightforward plat, and therefore I move to approve.
Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the plat is approved for 18 months with the conditions 1 through 9. The next case is case S11866-1, Angela Heights subdivision. May we have the staff's presentation, please?
Thank you. My name is Francis McLaughlin. It's been probably over a year since I presented a staff report to this board, so I just wanted to introduce myself to the new members. This case, this is a request to re-subdivide 3 tracts into 1 tract, Angela Heights subdivision. This could not be handled as a short plat, as it typically would be, because there was a short plat recorded within the last 4 years. There is a public comment on page 27 of the packet opposing this replat. There's also a late comment that I think came with the packet also, but it was received after staff had put together the report. So I'd like to point you to those comments. The department recommends approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 10 on pages 5 and 6 of the packet. This is a pretty simple plat. The standards are all, the conditions of approval are all very standard. The first one is resolving utility easements, and the second one is showing dimensions of the right-of-way. The third one may have already been taken care of, third and fourth one, which had to do with a fence that may have encroached into the right-of-way. I believe those have been taken down, but we'll ask for proof of that. Dedication of right-of-way is there on condition number 5. Obtaining a church site plan approval. This is required because of changes on the site, and this plat will be subject to the approval of that church site plan, which is forthcoming. Site grading and drainage plan standard, driveway permits to all municipal and state rights-of-way standard. Condition number 9, making a few drafting changes. And 10 has to do with plat notes prohibiting access to Eagle River Road. And the landscaping, maintaining it for the future, not changing the grading and drainage plan, which has to do with condition number 7, because they will be approved for a grading and drainage plan to ensure that there's no negative impacts on neighboring properties. And 10D has to do with more drainage stuff having to do with property owner and utilities not changing the draining pattern. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, and the petitioner is here to speak to the case also.
Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. And would the petitioner or the petitioner's representative please come forward and state your name?
Good evening. I'm Greg Walker. I'm a deacon for Kingsway Ministry Center, and I'm the project manager on behalf of this church. And I'm here representing Kingsway Ministry Center tonight and Pastor Jack Aiken. The purpose, as was stated, is to take 3 of our properties and combine them into one. And we agree with the department's comments and no concerns with it. Be happy to answer any questions. Or
are there any questions for Mr. Walker? Seeing none, you have 9 minutes and 45 seconds of rebuttal. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify in case S11866-1? Please come forward and state your name.
My name is Ruth Keller, and I am a property owner adjacent to the property that is in question. Kingsway has done a very poor job of communicating to our residential community. No communication at all what they're doing. They've already built a building on the land that we're talking about, the tracks there. A huge structure. It's a gymnasium. Your comments on page 5 say that it's a future school gymnasium, but it's already been built. It's already affecting the drainage. The roof, the way it's built, the snow is going to build up on there, and when it drains down, it's going to come right into our backyards and flood it. We all are on wells on that side of the street. No consideration was given to that. Late at night, they were vibrating the house at 2 o'clock in the morning while they were working on structuring this building that they do not have permits to build. Called the code enforcement agent. He was shut down after he had stopped them from building it several times. He was told by Jack Frost not to interrupt their construction any longer. It's been a disruption to our entire community there, and there's been no consideration by the church. I get flyers from them about their school, come and join our school, but not any information about what they're doing, and they're building this huge building that completely, I mean, I don't have a photograph with me. I wish I did, because you can't even believe what they put there. And this is supposed to be matching. If you look at Code Title 21, it says that what is supposed to be built there is in conjunction with single-family residential character. This is not. There is no consideration for the noise pollution that we will be involved with there. They more than likely will be putting a parking lot there. If they do, they can't drain all the snow out into the street. It's going to come into our backyards. There's been no consideration as to how that is going to be affecting us as a community as well. There's also conflicting information that you have out on the planning's website. It says that nothing can be more than 25 feet high. This is 30 feet high. Under Title 21, it does say 30, but it also has that you cannot maximize over 30% of the lot. There's a house there still, and then there's the structure. It maximizes way beyond 30%. Consideration was not given for that. Also, members have been indicating that we will benefit greatly by the gun shows that they're going to have in this gymnasium. I don't need a gun show in my backyard. Lions Park is close enough. They have gun shows and all that all the time. I'm not against guns, but I don't need to have a gymnasium with guns literally in my backyard. We talk pretty heavily in our communities about, having something look decent, matching the area. This does not match the area. It is not conducive with what our neighborhood is. We even have objections to people putting water tanks in the area without painting trees on them. This is a huge structure, and I object to it. Thank you.
Wait.
Oh, okay. Questions for me?
Are there any questions for Ms. Keller? Mr. Young?
You mentioned that your well is going to be impacted. How is your water well going to be impacted?
Well, there was no consideration given, even when they were building it, to the fact that all the vibration, you could end up with collapsing. How about the drainage? What is going to be contaminating our water, our wells? There's been no consideration for that.
Do you know how deep your well is?
I do not know. I have everything, of course, documented in my house, but I do not know how deep it is.
Do you know if your well is cased to the depth of the well?
I'm sure it is. My husband would be probably able to answer that better than I am. He's here.
Okay. And with respect to the stormwater or the snow melt, did you indeed have flooding this year?
We are still early enough on that I don't know what's going to happen because the building was just literally finished. So now we'll have to deal with it next year when the snow builds up on the roof and melts down, unless the building is taken down.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Keller? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11866-1 Angela Heights subdivision?
My name is Mark Keller. I'm husband to Ruth Keller. And I'll answer your question right away, Mr. Young. Our well is cased all the way pretty well. I'm pretty sure it's to the bottom, and it's 138 to 140 feet deep. I have been on top of this since they started cleaning the trees out back in last May. I talked personally to the pastor, and hopefully that he would be considerate and bring it to the building committee board, that he would open it up to the public and at least notify the community of what's going on back there and have a little bit of input. His exact words is that we don't have to, we own the land. The last time we had input, a lot of stuff went wrong, so we don't have to. I said, your permits are not done yet. It would be a good idea to work with the community. And that was the last I heard of him, and that was the last I talked to him. I went down and talked to Tim Hamrick, and he told me to notify him if they did more than just clean the trees and the subsoil. Within 2 days after I talked to him, they were digging a 15-foot well, or a 15-foot hole to take out the septic tank. They did not have their permits to do that. I called Tim, and he came down and told them to shut it down because their permits were not for that. Well, a little time went on, and about midsummer, footings were going in towards August, September time frame is when I noticed that the footings were going in. And I personally talked to Tim, and he basically said, it's out of my hands. I've been told to not approach the construction site anymore. And I asked him if the permits had gone through, and he said no. So the building is put up. It looks like an airplane hangar, a pole barn. It is an eyesore. And I have contacted Bill Starr, and I don't know if I can hand any of you guys the comments that he did on our behalf for emails and back, but he was, by somebody within the city organization, said that the church had contacted the community council and Bill Starr, and it says in his emails that Bill Starr was not contacted by the church. So there's been a lot of backdooring, a lot of nonsense and not straightforward. Church is not above the local government. It has to give to Caesar's what is Caesar's and honor the local government's permits and not be putting the cart before the horse. And I have pictures of, if there's any questions, I would more than honored to answer them for you.
Any questions for Mr. Keller? Mr. Fuller.
through the chair. Mr. Keller, what lot is yours?
What lot? We're lot number 4. The original house that's standing there is basically our backyard right now. The 2 lots split right about the middle of my lot. And the building is on the lot that the house is standing on. The original house and garage is standing on right now.
Okay, so your lot faces west?
It faces, yeah, the mountains are to the west, yes.
Bloom Street is to your west?
Yeah, well, Chickalin Street is out. What? North-south. North-south, yeah. So Chickalin Street runs north-south, so, yeah, our backyard is the church's lot on the other side of the fence.
So your back lot faces east?
Yes.
So it faces up the mountain?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Keller? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11866-1?
My name is Scott Coombs. I'm Lot 1 on this parcel plan. All my concerns were addressed on that page 27, so I have no concern. They were addressed on your response on page 10. I have one question. It says here, the department recommends approval of the plot for 18 months subject to, what does that 18 months mean? Starting as of now? Do they have to start the work and finish it within 18 months? What happens after 18 months?
It isn't the work on the project itself. It's the meeting the conditions of approval.
Say again?
It hasn't got anything to do with the construction on the lot. The 18 months is meeting the conditions of approval. So if we approve the plat, there are 10 conditions of approval, and they have to meet those conditions of approval and have the plat recorded within that 18 months.
Within 18 months?
Yes.
Thank you. Questions?
Are you okay? Any questions for Mr. Coons? Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11866-1?
Good evening. My name is Paul Keller. My folks back here, I live at the same residential address as a family lot there, lot number 4. I kind of summarized my comments. It was the packet he mentioned that was late comments, and I apologize. I didn't realize there was a 10-day date. I ended up turning it in after the fact. I'll summarize that if I will, and I have copies if you guys would like a copy tonight. I don't know if that's applicable, but I'll go ahead and read through this. This kind of summarizes my thoughts on the issue, and we'll get through it. I'm writing in regards to the Kingsway Assembly of God Church construction project that is both currently underway and being planned for the land along Eel River Loop Road to the Eagle River Road intersection. Specifically, I'm referring to the construction of a gymnasium sports complex that is being built vertically adjacent from an overhead port of reference to the pre-existing Kingsway Church building. Current rezoning planning case, which is the current case we're referring to, is being undertaken to subdivide, or as the case may be instead, to consolidate 3 separate tracts into a single tract. Kingsway Church is presumably attempting this so that they may be able to make use of the land for a supporting infrastructure to the current sports complex that they have now constructed. During the course of this project, members of both Kingsway's leadership and the Municipality of Anchorage Community Development Department, specifically certain members of the Planning Division, have failed to exercise due diligence to the affected members of the surrounding neighborhood. They have also utilized ad hominem rhetoric and covert, inauspicious legal deployments in an effort to speed up their construction process and prevent any opposing public feedback from hurting their project. Multiple members of the local neighborhood have voiced opposition and concerns about the project, but their voice has been ignored, specifically by the leadership of the church and Jack Frost, the Deputy Director and Chief of Code Enforcement. I am writing to address these concerns once again, as well as provide some testimony towards the Rust project progress and public failures of the project. During the initial permitting and development phase of the project, Kingsway leadership preemptively started construction without any communication to the parties involved, specifically to the residents, on their building before they had received all of their proper permits. They used an initial grade clearing permit approval to immediately move ahead with the landscaping required to put in the foundation of the building. During the course of these actions, last summer in 2010, a considerable amount of heavy machinery was used on the site. This machinery obviously generated a considerable amount of noise and vibrations. I work on the night shift of my particular job, and during the day when I come home, I would have to endure listening to this for about 8 hours a day as I was trying to sleep. I contacted Kingsway and spoke to their buildings and grounds chairman, who do not remember the name, was invariably told that there was nothing could be done due to the fact that construction was moving forward. The machinery was obviously required for work. Despite the fact that construction activity was taking place during the legally permitted hours, this general attitude of subordination towards the neighboring residents was commonplace during the course of the project. I have other comments in the back. I'll read the summary since I'm running out of time. And Jen, in summary, there's about at least 6-7 issues that they need to address: noise control, access control and security for the surrounding residential properties, drainage, land permitting violations and permit use, and the effects on the property values for the residential homes. I'll cover that later on in the letter. If you'd like a copy, I can hand a packet for. You do? Okay.
Are there any questions for Mr. Keller? Any questions at all? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11866-1?
My name is Stan Brankowitz, and I resided at 10107 Chickling Street since 1976.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Starts with a B as in boy, A-R-A-N-K-I-E-W-I-C-Z. Does that count as part of my 3 minutes?
No.
Okay. Anyway, I procured the property in 76 and have recently sold it to Sandra Philman, who couldn't be here tonight. She asked me to speak in her behalf. In the late 70s, a preacher came around and asked for permission to build a church on the corner. And he said it was going to be a little country, little city, little church on the corner. That turned out not to be true. It's a monster. And the poor people that live directly behind it, instead of looking at the mountains, they look at this big red slab side of a building. It's not to say across the street there are all kinds of churches, and anywhere anybody wants to build a church in his own church area, I think is a great idea. But the camel got his nose in the tent, and this R1 designated property is a commercial property now. It's a church. It's gone from the corner church it was supposed to be, moved all the way to the end of the block. It's got a huge building. It almost looks like your stadium, only bigger. And my question is, how does property designated R1, that when we bought, that's what we expected to do, is live in a residential area, all of a sudden get changed into other than R1 property? And as I understand it, before that process can take place, everybody's supposed to be notified about it. I have never been notified about this going on until after I see them starting to build. That's my question. How does this happen? Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Brankowitz? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11866-1, Angela Heights subdivision? Anyone at all?
Yes, my name is Pedro Torres, and the building's right behind my house. And every time I look out the window, I have to see that damn building. I can see the mountains at all, just the building behind my house. And it's no consideration whatsoever for anybody. They just do what they want to do, or what? What can we do about it? That's what I have to say. I mean.
Any questions for Mr. Torres? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. My name's Randall Odens, and I live at 10123 Chickaloon Street,
Could you spell your last name, please?
Odens. And yes, I'm not happy about a big white elephant behind my house. I used to have mountains, trees to look at. Now I got this humongous hunk of junk sitting there. They raised the land level probably an extra 10 feet above my property, and nobody even walked over to say anything. I'm not happy. Here they're saying they don't have permits. They're letting them build. Why is not the city or somebody out there putting a kibosh to it? I don't understand why they get to do whatever they want without getting the permits, secured. I'm not happy about it. I don't know why they think they can come in there and just tear up whatever they feel like and put up a building that nobody even wants to look at. Right now, it's a big white elephant. That's what I got to say. I'm not happy. Any comments?
Any questions for Mr. Odens? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing none, Mr. Walker, do you care to use any of your rebuttal time?
Just take a brief minute. I couldn't hear a lot of the conversation, and I apologize for that. I didn't realize that there were late comments up there, so I didn't get to read some of those, if some of those were from the neighbors. To clarify a couple of things that I have heard concerns about in one of the written comments was about parking. We won't be adding additional parking, so it's not like we're going to be clearing a huge additional parking lot. The use that's going to be in this facility is for gymnasium and sports stuff for our school, which currently exists on the property. And today our children are doing their recess in the summertime in one of our lower lots, or in the winter they're doing it in the hallways of our church. So we're not adding a lot of additional use to what we're doing, we're currently doing on our property. We won't have an additional requirement with parking. We've gone through We've gone through all the permitting processes we've needed to do the construction to this point. So we've done a land clearing permit, we've done a shell permit, and we've only built to the level that we were approved to by the permitting process with the city and with the state fire marshal's office. And we're continuing to pursue the rest of those details as we go through. So the impact as far as what's going on, what will be happening in the new facility, is nothing different than what we're doing today. I understand that people that used to have trees in their backyard and they now have construction going on aren't going to be happy, and I appreciate that. And we've tried every way we know how to take that into consideration and make sure that we're minimizing impact, but at the same time able to use the property for the purposes that we're approved for. And the gymnasium is an approved accessory use for our school and our church. So I appreciate their concerns, I truly do, and I don't want to make light of that. Everything that they've addressed, we spent a lot of time working with the construction permit to ensure that we did the drainage so that it didn't drain anything to the neighbor's property. And we're continuing to work that and make sure that we don't have any issues with that. And quite honestly, I'm on that construction site almost every night, and I did make sure I went down and watched it during breakup because I was concerned about that we do due diligence to make sure that we have all the swales, that we direct the water to a different area. So we are sensitive to their concerns. I don't know, several of the statements I've watched, and we don't do construction outside of normal hours. We haven't. Well, I'm sorry. No.
Okay.
So, again, everything we have done has been permitted. It's been approved. We've never proceeded past that, and we've made sure that we manage to that because we are trying to be the best neighbor we know how to be, but at the same time we're also trying to take care of our school and our children that attend that school. And we understand that when you take a wooded lot and clear a lot, the neighbors are losing their trees. I get that. But I don't know what else we could have done to minimize that. We've tried to take care of that. So any further questions, I'd be happy to entertain. But
Any questions for Mr. Walker? Mr. Young?
Yes, Mr. Walker, where does the drainage go now, the surface drainage?
I'm sorry, say that again, please. I got bad ears, and I'm having trouble in this room, so.
Thank you. Where does the surface water drainage go now from stormwater and snowmelt?
With the construction site itself, the west side that butts the neighbor's property will drain to a drainage swale that will be finished, and it'll run it from north to south alongside the building, and then as it clears the southwest corner of the building, it'll actually direct it back towards, back across between the old house area and to the way the plan is drawn, it'll direct it into the stormwater drains on Eagle River Loop Road.
So it's not going to go onto the neighbor's property?
It's designed not to, no, sir. It's, like I said, we put a drainage swale in there that runs the length of the building to collect all the water that comes off the roof and bring it back south and to the southeast away from their land.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Walker? Ms. Moses? Oh, I'm sorry.
I have one question. You stated that you're building the gymnasium to complement your school. Where's your school? Is your school the existing church or the existing building in Lot C2?
A little of both. The building on Lot C2 that's to the far northwest corner that's our high school facility. The elementary schools are meeting in the downstairs area of the main church building.
Thank you.
Ms. Moses?
Yes, on page 13 of the packet, the Eagle River Street Maintenance, Public Works, commented, and what they wrote is, after a site visit, it's concluded that the obvious snow storage at this location needs to be addressed. Right. And they indicate here that the present situation is a strain or potential strain on the stormwater system and will cause flooding issues to the residents in the area. Can you tell me what's been done to address this? And I can't find anything else in here that shows any addressing this.
And I'll say, until I saw the packet just the other day, this is news to me. This is if you look on the maps, the area they're talking about is basically just to the north of that building that shows on Lot C2. That area there is a gravel parking lot that we've been parking in for many years, and we've been plowing the snow basically to the west, abutting Baranoff there. And we've been doing that for many years, and it's never been raised as an issue until now. By the time I saw the comment just a couple days ago, the snow's gone. Obviously, we can look at and we can work with addressing any concerns that the city has as far as snow removal and where we're putting our snow in the future. But that hasn't been a concern, or it's just been a normal practice for many years, and hasn't ever been raised as an issue. The drainage issues that we've been working with the city on to this point have all been down around the new construction. And we've had all the snow removal plans addressed in the new construction areas. So, again, we'll figure out what we need to do to fix the snow storage or snow removal in that area, but that had never come up as a concern prior to this, and we've been using that lot for a lot of years. So.
Any other questions for Mr. Walker? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing and the matter rests with the board. Mr. McLaughlin, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Interestingly, the approval of this plat will clear up drainage issues on the site. The Private Development Division is aware of water issues and drainage problems, and with Condition 7 of this plat, which requires the petitioner submit a grading and drainage plan to private development and resolve the need for drainage easements, they will ensure that drainage is properly detained and handled, whether it be sending it to drainage facilities or detention locations or sediment basins. There are ways of dealing with it, and that's how that is handled. Madam Chair, may I speak to some other issues, or do you prefer to? I'm fine either way.
Yes, we would like you to continue.
Thank you. What's at issue with this subdivision case is removing 2 lot lines. The petitioner is entitled to remove those 2 lot lines, consolidating 3 tracts into 1, subject to meeting the subdivision standards. Those are found in chapters Anchorage Municipal Code 2115, 2175, 2180, and 2185. There is no variance request with this application. There's no vacation request with this application. It's simply removing the 2 lot lines. That's the only thing that's at issue with this. As long as there's, it's not creating a drainage problem, which we've dealt with. As long as it's not creating a public health and safety concern. So that's what's at issue. But I'd like to try and speak to some of the questions that were raised by the public. First of all, federal law, RLUPA is the name of the law, the acronym, and that requires that all zoning districts permit churches. All zoning districts by federal law are required to permit churches. Expanding churches are a common concern in residential neighborhoods throughout the city, throughout the municipality. What is allowed under federal law is to require certain standards of approval and certain types of review over and above just permitting them. That is allowed under the religious land law. And so the municipality has a process for doing that. It's called the church site plan review. And the petitioner is in the process of preparing his church site plan review. It'll be submitted to the planning division for review and approval. And there'll be a whole set of conditions that the petitioner will have to meet in regards to that. And there are standards. They can't just be subjective. There are standards that are written in code. This plat provides a 10-foot buffer landscape easement that will be installed with buffer landscaping, and I can go through what that landscaping requires, the number of trees and shrubs that are required. That'll go the entire length of the lot of this new tract abutting the residential neighborhood in every place. From what I've seen from the preliminary church site plan, the entire southern part of the tract will remain naturally vegetated. It's heavily vegetated with trees. No new parking is planned to go there. They meet their parking requirement from what I've seen. The first building that you come to is an old house as you go from the southern part of the site to the north. It's an old house, and the church has said that they intend to use that for dry storage. The gymnasium is the next thing you come to, and then there's a little play area for children, and then there's parking, and then the church sanctuary. Part of the school is there, I think some of the church offices, and then the next building houses some of the church school also. Lot coverage was an issue that Ms. Keller raised. That's not a problem. The R1A allows 30% lot coverage. As you can see, that they don't come close to violating that lot coverage limit. The building height is a good point. We'll have to take a look at that. That's a zoning issue. There was Ms. Keller made a complaint about the height of the gymnasium. Principal structures are allowed to be 30 feet in height. Other accessory structures 20 feet and 12 feet depending. And that's something that will be reviewed with the church site plan review. It will be reviewed with the building permit. It's not an issue with the plat. Mr. Keller raised the issue of noise, and Janine Nessheim is the expert in the Department of Health and Human Services that reviews noise complaints to ensure that all activities and construction will be within the municipal noise ordinance, the hours of operation, the decibels, and all of that. I've tried to address some of the questions that were and concerns that were raised by the public here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Are there any questions for Mr. McLaughlin? Mr. Cole?
Through Madam Clerk, Mr. McLaughlin, I apologize. I'm new to the board, so I'm a little bit, this is new to me. I have a couple questions. The federal law that you mentioned, does it make any distinctions between church property and buildings that are being used for schools? And is there any differentiation when the proposed use is really educational in nature, even though it's related to the church? Is there any distinctions for that? That's my first question, because I'm not familiar with that federal statute.
Through the chair, Mr. Cole, it's an excellent question. Churches in the lower 48 are doing water parks and all kinds of things. I
guess my question is it required under federal law that they get the same treatment? I'm not really concerned about whether the states are doing, but is it someone's interpretation that they're entitled to the same treatment regardless of what it is, so long as it's owned by the church?
Accessory uses to churches, whether it be a parochial school gymnasium, other uses, that's the subject of much case law, and I'm not an expert on that. The Land Use Determination Office has reviewed or will review and approve whether or not a gymnasium is allowed or permitted as an accessory use to the church and the church school. It is an allowed use in this case per our land use code, Anchorage Municipal Code, Title 21.
Thank you. Through the chair. And then the second question, I was interested in your statement that the projected remainder of the southern end is not going to be developed, but I'm assuming there's no requirement that it's not going to be developed at some point. Is there, or is that part of the, that's not part of anybody's agreement that that's not going to be developed, is it?
Well, it is possible that the property, that the forests, let's call it, along the southern portion of the property could be clear-cut and developed. But before it would have to go through a church site plan review. The church is going to go through a site plan review when they turn it in tomorrow or whatever day it is, and they will be required to adhere to that approved site plan, and they won't be allowed to make any changes to the approved site plan without a further review.
And that leads me to my last question, and I apologize again, because I'm new a little bit here, but why are they being allowed to prepare a site plan in the next 18 months when they've already cleared the land and built? And I'm sorry, but please don't interrupt. I'm not really sure that I even know what I'm doing here. I mean, we're conscientious. Everybody on this board is very interested in your concerns, but I'm really using this opportunity to fill myself in because I am new. But could you explain that to me, my question?
No, Mr. Cole, through the chair, Mr. Cole, I'm not prepared to answer that question. I don't have that information. The municipality has different offices, and one is building permitting, and another is planning. I work in the planning office. I know that they have applied for building permits and received approval for footing and foundation and certain other permits. Although this plat may be controversial, it is not. It appears to meet the standards of a subdivision, and I think that other permits are being held subject to approval of this plat.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions of staff? Ms. McKenzie.
Mr. McLaughlin, with regard to the grading and drainage plan, I just wanted to confirm that that will take into consideration any of the buildup of snow from the gymnasium building that was expressed as a concern.
Yes, it will.
And I just also wanted to confirm that not only will they have to submit the plan, but I'd like to confirm that someone will actually be on site next year at breakup to confirm that it's working as planned.
Through the chair, Ms. McKenzie, private development, what they do is drainage, and their engineers that do a thorough evaluation and analysis of all water issues, and they will review and approve a drainage plan that will not allow drainage to negatively affect abutting properties or rights of way. And if there is any, we're complaint driven in terms of years outset, if there's no requirement that the board can make for this to be checked next year or the year after, but should there be a drainage problem, then the public can call the municipality's zoning complaint line and complain about drainage problems created, and that's how there's a process for dealing with that.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Seeing none, could I have a positive motion on the plat, please? Mr. Young.
In the case of S11866-1 Angela Heights subdivision, I make a positive motion to subdivide the 3 tracts into 1 lot.
Subject to?
Subject to the conditions on page number 5 through 6, conditions 1 through 10. Thank you.
And Mr. Fuller, you second? Mr. Young, would you speak to your motion, please?
Yes, I intend to support this motion. We've heard some controversial information. One was drinking water wells could be impacted, but the only evidence is a 138-foot cased well, which is very unlikely to be impacted from surface water in a case like this. We've heard about snowmelt, but snowmelt hasn't impacted yet, and condition number 7 will address drainage. I believe there's adequate findings tonight to support the to support the subdivision of these three lots into one.
Any other discussion? Mr. Fuller.
Just as a positive comment, I intend to support the motion, and I've lived in a house for almost 30 years now that adjoins a large church property, and I found them to be very good neighbors, and I'd rather have them than my other neighbors. So even though under construction it kind of looks like an ugly thing, it's kind of like making sausage, but at the end I suspect that as they have it laid out, they have the drainage easement or the relief lines here showing the drainage is definitely as a positive direction to Eagle River Loop. I think you've got that covered. And of course, your recourse, if they don't actually build it according to the plan, is through the court. So, thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Story.
Yes, I'd just like to go on record just to say that, obviously the development of the property is very controversial, and I appreciate the public and the neighbors' concerns, although I think there is a misconception from the public that the Platting Board has other authority than it really does into permitting or code enforcement, planning, zoning, site review, or construction activity. We really don't. And just based purely on the plat, I feel that it is a pretty straightforward plat. Therefore, I will be supporting the motion, although I would like to add an amendment to Note 7 that could read, resolve the need for snow removal with the Eagle River street maintenance. Just to make sure that street maintenance in Eagle River is aware of the snow removal conditions and the drainage there.
I would agree to that.
Yeah, we have to. Okay. Does Moses seconds? Okay, there's a motion on the table to amend Condition 7. Would you repeat your amendment, please?
I would like to amend Note 7 to include resolve the need for snow removal with the Eagle River street maintenance.
Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition to the amendment? Seeing none, the amendment passes, and we'll go back to the main motion. Any further discussion? Mr. Cole?
Madam Clerk, and again, I want to go on record that I would echo the comments of Mr. Story. I think we all want to try to do the right thing up here, and we are sympathetic to the concerns that have been brought to the attention of the people. From my understanding, our authority is fairly limited to what's here. It's one of these situations where when you're sitting up here in an hour, it's very difficult to reach a consensus one way or the other that on what has happened over the last 6 months. I think anybody would be troubled if half the neighbors on a block that were abutting a premises like this came in here and complained, and obviously very vehemently complained. That would be something that everybody understands and considers. But at the end of the day, whether I vote for it or not, I think what we want you to understand, or what I want you to understand, is we appreciate you coming in and saying this and being a part of the process. And thank you. That's all I have.
Any other discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion?
Yes.
Then we will vote. A yes vote approves the plat, a no vote does not. The motion passes, takes 5 positive motions, so the plat is approved for 18 months, subject to the conditions listed on pages 5 and 6. Next case is case F11868-1, Huffman Business Park Subdivision, Tract T1.
You're a church member. He needs to be a church member.
Yes, and he has to answer to God about it.
Could we have staff's presentation, please? Or not.
Is it time? Okay, sorry. In the matter of Huffman Business Park Subdivision Tract T1, this is a request to subdivide one lot into one different lot with vacation of approximately 3,851 feet of Huffman Park Drive right-of-way. The purpose of the plat and vacation is to respond to the Department of Transportation and Public Facility right-of-way improvement project along Huffman Road. The plat is just a change to move the lot boundary out to the edge of the vacated right-of-way. DOT is planning major improvements along Huffman Road, including a roundabout with an intersection at Huffman Business Park Drive. Right-of-way acquisition for this project leaves unnecessary and excessive right-of-way adjacent to the site. DOT, traffic engineering, private development, fire plan review, and planning have no objection to the vacation request. The department recommends approval of the vacation as written on page 4. And the department recommends approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 5 on page 5. The intersection is scheduled to be rebuilt this summer within the 18 months that this plat would be recorded, so timing doesn't appear to be an issue. The petitioner has stated that should the project not go forward on time, then they could apply for a time extension request. They'd be eligible for 2 time extension, 18-month time extension requests. I'd like to make one change to the conditions of approval. Add a condition 6 stating install arterial landscaping. Again, that's to add a condition, condition number 6, stating install arterial landscaping. It says in condition number 3 to dedicate an arterial landscape easement. In 5A, the plat note, it says that maintenance of that landscape easement is required in perpetuity, but staff overlooked or made a mistake by not requiring landscaping to be installed. And it does not appear that a subdivision agreement is necessary here, because the landscaping will be installed before the plat is recorded. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. McLaughlin? Ms. McKenzie.
I note that on the first page of the report, there's a recommendation that plat note number 2 from plat 84492 be brought forward with a revision to read direct vehicular access from tract 1 to Huffman Road is prohibited, or there shall be no direct vehicular access from tract T1 to Huffman Road. But I don't see a condition bringing that recommendation forward.
Through the chair, Ms. McKenzie, I think that your question was that there needed to be, why wasn't one of the agencies had stated that a plat note needed to be carried forward?
Yes.
Is the plat note that needed to be carried forward shown on the plat already, and therefore staff didn't need to require it?
That's my question, whether it was brought forward or whether that's something
Well,
that needs to be addressed.
I only have a small version in front of me, but it says plat note 5 on the proposed preliminary plat. It says direct vehicular access from tract T1, I guess, to Huffman Road is prohibited. So that's why staff didn't require it. It's already shown.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Mr. Young.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I'm confused on the department recommendations on 5A is arterial enhancement landscaping meeting the requirements of AMC 2145.125C shall be installed and maintained within the arterial enhancement landscape. What is the purpose for adding number 6, install arterial landscaping? Isn't it covered?
Through the chair, Mr. Young, you found an error. This should state arterial landscaping, not arterial enhancement landscaping. What it was it originally said visual enhancement landscaping, and then I just didn't delete the enhancement part. We have standards for landscaping, and arterial landscaping is one type of landscaping. So staff would ask that the board remove the word enhancement from plat note A twice. Thank you. And to your question of why is staff adding a condition to install the landscaping, there needs to be a requirement. Whenever there's landscaping, there's typically three requirements. 1, to dedicate the easement. 2, to install the landscaping. And 3, a plat note making it clear that the owner of the property has to maintain it. Those 3 things need to be there in all cases. In rare circumstances, the installation of landscaping is not required, and the reason for that may be that it's not appropriate. There's going to be a driveway there. There's some reason why it doesn't. The landscaping can be installed with the building permit instead of at the time of the plat. But in this case, we should require it with the plat.
I'm still a little confused, but I'm not in an argumentative state here. On the second line on 5A says that it shall be installed and maintained within the arterial landscape easements. So I'm still questioning why you're suggesting number 6 add the words install arterial landscaping. Is that not already covered in number 5A?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Young. No, it is not covered by the plat note, and the reason why is the owner of the property, the petitioner, does not need to seek a building permit for anything. They can resolve these conditions and record the plat without having to obtain any building permits. So with the building permit, someone would catch it in the plat note and say, oh, before we grant you this building permit, you have to install the landscaping. But in this case, they're not going for a building permit, so we have to get it now. And there's a difference between a condition of approval and a plat note. A plat note is wording that goes on the plat as sort of FYI, like this is your information for this owner and for future owners. But a plat note is not the same thing as a condition. A condition of approval means that prior to recording the plat, this has to be done or resolved or satisfied. But a plat note doesn't have that same thing. It's just, it's literally saying, we're going to write this on the plat.
Thank you, I now understand.
Any other questions of staff? Mr. Fuller.
Through the chair. And number 2 speaks about traffic engineering the location driveways to Brandon Street, but I don't quite understand where Brandon Street is. I see Huffman and Huffman Park.
Through the chair, Mr. Fuller, it would be more accurate to say Huffman Park Drive. What happens is north of Huffman Road, the street is called Huffman Park Drive, and south of Huffman Road, it's called Brandon Street. So that's another error.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing, and could we hear from the petitioner or the petitioner's representative, please?
Madam Chairman, members of the board, my name is Dan Baldwin. I'm with Lounsbury & Associates, and I'm representing the petitioner. I reviewed the staff comments, and I guess on the new one, number 6, I have a request for clarification. Installing interior landscaping is you're referring to the southern portion along Huffman Road, correct? Not on the east side.
Through the chair, staff has not gone out to see. So there needs to be an arterial landscape easement along Huffman Road and also along Huffman Park Drive, because they're both collector streets. Where B3 property abuts a collector street or greater, then arterial landscaping is required. And I haven't checked to see if the landscaping that exists along Huffman Road meets the requirements of arterial landscaping. It probably does, and then you would only need to do arterial landscaping, new arterial landscaping abutting your new lot boundary. But I just left it open to both so that, it can be checked.
Okay. Well, the reason for the petition is to redesign the parking, and so there's going to be some new parking construction along Huffman Road or Huffman Park Drive. So as far as installing landscaping, that may be not feasible.
Gosh. Through the chair, as I look at the conditions of approval, it says dedicate a 6-foot arterial landscape easement along Huffman Road, but it should say along both Huffman Road and along Huffman Park Drive. And so Huffman Park Drive also needs arterial landscaping. Now, the configuration of how you do parking will have to you'll have to make it fit within these required landscape easements.
Okay. Well, that was the only issue I wanted to raise. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Baldwin? Ms. Moses.
Through the chair. So with that seemingly pretty big clarification on number 3, where he said it should read 6-foot arterial landscape easement along Huffman Road and Huffman Park Road or Drive, I'm not sure, Drive. Does that change your request at all, I guess, because you mentioned the parking?
Well, we have, let's see, we have no objection to landscaping along Huffman Road. It's the Huffman Park Drive that may interfere with our proposed parking. But
Any other questions for Mr. Baldwin? If not, thank you. You have 9 minutes. I don't know who you're going to rebut, but...
It's not as exciting as the last one.
Okay. Seeing no one else in attendance, is there anything else you wish to add?
No.
Okay, he indicates not. We'll close the public hearing, and the matter rests with the board. Any questions for staff? Mr. Fuller?
Yes, staff, through the chair. The arterial screening is on the Huffman Road side, on a B3 lot. I mean, isn't that a business zone lot?
Through the chair, yes, Mr. Fuller. Anchorage Municipal Code, Title 21, 45, 125, C4A says, arterial landscaping shall be provided along all collector or arterials adjacent to the site with a commercial zoning classification of B1A, B1B, and B3. And this is B3.
So you're screening a business from an arterial road? That's part of our... Okay. Thank you.
May I respond? Through the chair, Mr. Fuller, I understand your concern. The arterial landscaping is a short landscaping. The bed width is only 6 feet, and it's mostly hedges and sort of foundational plantings. It's not trees to block the view of a commercial building.
Mr. Story.
Staff, through the chair, would it be appropriate to add to Note 6, meeting the requirements of AMC 2145, 125C?
Through the chair, yes, that would be fine. It's always a question of, do you refer to yes, because condition number 3 says dedicate the easement in accordance with the zoning regulations which require it, and then condition 6 stating install arterial landscaping, and you're citing the standard or what actually has to be planted there. That would be very appropriate.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? If not, could I have a positive motion? Mr. Story.
In the case of S-11866-1, Angela Heights Subdivision, Tract 1, I move to approve the vacation of approximately 3,851 square feet of Huffman Park Drive right-of-way adjacent to Huffman Business Park, Subdivision Tract 1, subject to conditions 1 through 5.
No, that's the plat. Two things. First the vacation, then the plat.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. And Ms. Moses, you second? Mr. Story, would you speak to your motion, please?
Again, this is, seems like a pretty straightforward vacation, extending the property out to the existing right-of-way.
Mr. Young?
Yes, I would like to add clarification on the, when you discuss the case number, I want to clarify that this is the Huffman Business Park Subdivision, Track T1.
Yeah. Okay. Any discussion? Any objection? Seeing none, the vacation is approved. And moving on to the plat. Mr. Story?
Let's see if I can get it right this time. In the case S-11868-1 Huffman Business Park Subdivision, Tract 1, I move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 5 with the following corrections. In condition number 2, to take out Brandon Street and replace that with Huffman Park Drive. In condition 3, to add after Huffman Road, add and Huffman Park Drive. And in condition 5, on the plat notes, to remove, or in condition 5A, to remove the art enhancement twice. And then to add condition number 6, to read, install arterial landscaping meeting the requirements of AMC 21.45.125.C.
Is there a second? Mr. Young seconds. Mr. Story, would you speak to your motion, please?
Again, I agree with the department's recommendations and move to approve.
Any objection? Seeing none, the plat is approved, subject to the conditions as amended. Okay, that's the end of new business. No appearance requests, no persons to be heard. Reports. Are there any board member comments? Seeing none, could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Mr. Young, we are adjourned.